listening to Community Forum on KCCC 930 AM, sponsored by Eddy County, honoring God, country, and family, thriving with industry since 1889.
Thank you for listening to Community Forum. My name's Johnny Chandler. I'm the owner of KCCC 930 AM and the host of Community Forum. With me today are two individuals that have never been on Community Forum before. Right to my left, which means nothing to you because you're listening to the radio, you're not watching this, but to my left is Hattie Quinn. Hattie Quinn is the broadcast media program assistant here at Southeast New Mexico College, also a podcasting student, a very creative individual. I would call her an artist. I'm not sure that she would, but she's also a writer and a podcaster, and she's bringing community news every Wednesday at noon on KCCC with a program called Midweek Matters. We've only done that about 3 weeks so far. Maddie or Hattie, how are you doing today?
Great. Thanks, Johnny.
Did I sum up everything that you do?
No.
Okay.
I am a multi-potentialite. I do many more things.
Multi-potentialite. That's a sweet term. I like that, multi-potentialite. You also have an amazing son by the name of Ben, who I've gotten to meet multiple times. And, you know, you get to meet Ben yourself on your own, and as a public, you'll be equally as impressed as I am. All right. Across the desk from me is Jean Perminsky.
Yep.
Jean Perminsky is a member of the Artist Gallery, a Carlsbad resident. And how long have you been in Carlsbad?
I've been in Carlsbad since last summer.
Since last summer. And how are you liking it?
I love it. Yeah.
Okay. How does, you love Carlsbad, so I don't need to ask you how Carlsbad compares to every other place you live. But why don't you give us, where else have you lived?
I most recently have lived in Seattle. I was there for about 20 years, lived in California for a couple years, lived in Rhode Island, in Providence, went to college in Philadelphia, and I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area.
Okay, so you went from a place that probably was really wet all the time, lots of rain, lots of water, to where we haven't had rain in like 150 days.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're done drying out?
I'm loving the sun. I'm loving the dryness, and I'm ready for summer.
Yeah, she was ready to stop with the seasonal depression of living in the Pacific Northwest and in Rhode Island and all the dark places in the winter. You're right. It's absolutely the sunshine. You get really spoiled by the sunshine when you live here a long time. It's almost like an expectation, right? I had a buddy of mine, a friend of mine that I met years ago who moved from Seattle to Albuquerque when I was living in Albuquerque. And we're sitting there hanging out at a rooftop bar, right? Eating lunch. And I was like, dude, why do you not have sunglasses? You know what I mean? He still had not bought a pair of sunglasses because like every morning he would wake up and he would expect it to be cloudy. And I was like, it's not going to be cloudy. Get you some sunglasses. I'm tired of watching you squint. You know what I mean? It's like it was just over and over again. So, Hattie, I'm glad you're here with us, and you can jump in and ask any questions you want at any time. You're really here just as like a co-host, I think, today, because this interview is about Jean Perminsky and the Calling All Artists at the Artist Gallery. So we're going to let you get into that. But why don't you start by saying what type of artist you are?
My background is in glass. I have a lot of experience with blowing glass. I have a master's degree in glass. I love kiln casting and everything about glass. But the stuff that I've been doing most recently is cut paper over watercolor.
Okay. The glass blowing, I understand. And if you lived in Seattle and you get a chance to go to the Chihuly Museum?
Yeah, I worked for Chihuly for a long time. That's why I lived in
actually
Seattle.
You actually did work under him?
Yeah.
Okay, that is have you been there at all, Hattie?
No, I have not.
So sometimes museums make me tired, okay? Like, I went to the World War II Museum in New Orleans, and I'm a huge World War II geek, and I got tired. I was like, all right, but the Chihuly Glass exhibit, the museum in Seattle, it's spectacular. Yeah. It is quite possibly the most wonderful thing I've ever seen when it comes to glass blowing. And then there's also some really nice Chihuly glass exhibits in New Mexico. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
There's a theater outside of Ruidoso called the Spencer Theater.
No way.
And they have a beautiful Chihuly glass, like looks like a Christmas tree, right? Like one of the trees. And then a wall just full of the glass. And then I was at like some fancy auction event in Albuquerque at their country club, and they were auctioning off like a piece of Chihuly glass. Like, I don't remember what it was, but once it really was too expensive. We were just looking at it. We weren't going to make a bid on that thing. I think it went for like $6,000, and it was just like this tiny little thing.
Wow.
But
I'm not surprised.
So yeah, wow. Now I'm impressed, right? I could do 30 minutes on that one museum. That museum, it's incredible. So, okay. So, did you meet, what's his name? Is he Mr. Chihuly?
Dale Chihuly.
Oh, Dale Chihuly.
Yeah.
Does he want to go by Mr. Chihuly?
No, I think everyone calls him Dale.
Everyone calls him Dale. So you worked actually underneath him. Did you like get to meet him, or were you like kind of removed and like one of the people that was just making glass but didn't really see him all the time?
Yeah, I met him a few times. Usually, he didn't always come down to the glass shop, but he did have a presence in the studio.
Right. So you made glass, and so I mean, obviously he's an inspiration, right? There's no doubt, or you wouldn't work underneath him. But did you end up having like your own discipline when it came to glass blowing, like outside of him? Once you really got comfortable with who you were as a glass blower,
That's
right?
a good
Is that
question.
a good thing? You said glass blower.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good question. I think for me, I feel like kiln casting is where I can express myself the most. Although I love the art of glass blowing, I love the process of it.
Okay.
But my heart feels more connected to kiln casting.
Okay, kiln, like KILN casting. Yep. Okay, so why don't you, just for the listeners, give us a really brief overview as to what that is?
So it's kind of like, I'm just thinking about putting water in an ice cube tray and putting it in the freezer. But it's like having a mold that you put cold glass in, and you put it in the kiln, heat it up, and the glass melts into the mold.
So a kiln is like the same type of kiln you'd put like ceramics in if you were like a ceramics teacher?
Exactly.
Okay. And so that's kind of what you got into. So you weren't blowing glass at all then. I mean, you learned under that, but that wasn't what your passion ended up being.
Yeah, in grad school, I did a lot of glass blowing, and after grad school, I still continued to do it. But I found a special place with kiln casting.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that's impressive. Now, is all Chihuly glass blown glass, or is there a lot of just different disciplines within the Chihuly glass spectrum?
You know, most of it, he did have some like cast resin pieces that look like big rocks, but I think for the majority of it, it's all blown glass. And then he also has his paintings.
Okay. Well, if you ever get a chance, anybody that's listening, to go see a show at the Spencer Theater outside Rio Doso, you should definitely go. Kathy Mattea, if you know who Kathy Mattea is one of my favorite classic country artists that we air on KCCC all the time, right? She performed there a couple of times. I haven't got a chance to see the show yet, but if you do, then you have a dinner. The way that it works is you have a dinner, guaranteed with every show. There's a dinner. You get to check out all the cool Chihuly glass because it's really spectacular, and then you get to watch the show. And Kathy Mattea is one of my favorites. So anybody listening, look her up and make sure you listen on this program because I'm smitten with her. Now, you know, in the videos, she's an 80s, like 1980s, like really famous country singer in the 1980s, and she was drop dead gorgeous. She's not quite, you know, she's aged a little bit, but she still has a special place in my heart, no question about it. All right, so let's talk for just briefly. I want to know more about you, Jean, for sure. But let's talk a little bit briefly about this event that you're selling, that you're part of. Why don't you share a little bit about that with us?
So I am a member of the art gallery, which is part of the Carlsbad Area Art Association, and we're putting on an art show at the museum here in Carlsbad. Everything's due May 17th, and it's open to artists 14 years or older, all kinds of different disciplines. And it's a juried show. It's $8 per item entered, and you get to have your artwork in a museum.
Well, first of all, that's really cool. Second, I'm going to ask Hattie, do you know what a juried show is? Can you explain what a juried show is?
No.
Okay. So juried show, juried, it's spelled how do you expect, like Juried. But I don't know what a juried show means. In the art world, what does that mean?
A juried show means that not all the art that's entered in the show will automatically get accepted. You have to make sure that you're following the rules and the artwork is of the quality that they're looking for. But also, there's going to be some contests. So there's different categories, and you can win money depending on if you are the best in show or the best in your category.
Okay, well, I've got a little flyer here that I printed out on paper, which I know Hattie loves, right? And I want to make sure that it's going to give me some information. We're going to ask you for a little bit more here. So in quotations, it says Carlsbad Arts 2025, right? So calling all artists, the juried show at the Carlsbad Museum. If you have a piece of art of any type, right? Full spectrum art, you need to submit it by May 17th, and the show starts on May 19th. So the show is May 19th to June 14th. So it's almost a full month of being on display, which is pretty cool. And then you can submit it as late as 2 days before the show starts, which means you and all the other artists with Artist Gallery are going to have a really crazy 2 days leading up to the art show, right? The show is open to anyone 14 years or older. All the work that you submit, if you're an artist that's going to submit some work, must have been done within the past 2 years. So it could be already completed, but it must have been completed by May 17th after May 17th, 2023, to qualify for the 2 years. It's $8 for every item that you want to enter, right? And your item is not guaranteed to be selected. You're not going to get a refund if your item's not selected. This is also a fundraiser to help fund the local artists that we have in our community, correct?
I believe so.
Okay, so far so good. You can pick up an application at the Artist Gallery. That's at 120 South Canyon Street in Carlsbad, New Mexico, right downtown, right across from Benny's Western Warehouse, basically.
Exactly.
Right, or next to the United Way of Eddy County, that type of thing. So then you mentioned it's a juried show, Gene. So that means that there are a group of people that are going to decide whether your art is worthy enough to be in the Carlsbad Museum or not. Why don't you tell us about how that works and who those people are? Without you don't have to blow up their identity.
Yeah.
But just give me an idea.
I actually don't know who they are. It's kept very secret.
Are you one of them?
No, I'm not
Oh,
one of
wow.
them.
Okay.
I wish I was.
That
but
wouldn't
no.
be a secret.
So let me take a step back then. Yeah, it is going to be a secret. So you wish you were one of the individuals that got to judge which art gets in and which doesn't, right? So what qualifications are you missing to where you're not?
I don't know. The people that are picked on the jury are kind of picked it's a secret process. We all put down, okay, we want these people to be jurors. All the names get collected by the people that run the gallery, and they tally up all the names to see who are the people that are picked.
Okay. So, I mean, do you think some of it has to do with the fact you've only been here a year?
Probably.
Okay. I mean, you jumped right in the art scene, right? Now, Hattie, you're pretty, I mean, I know you're an author. You're a creative person. You're not necessarily an artist. I would say that you're an artist in words, right? I think that's what you mentioned to me before we even started recording. So I definitely think that, that you're an artist in words, but what can you tell me? Because you're just in tune with Carlsbad. I know you are. You've got that art look, in my opinion. If you want to stereotype an artist look, you've got that look. Okay. What can you tell me about the art community in Carlsbad as far as you know?
Well, actually, it's been pretty active since I got here, which amazes me. I don't know why, but I just didn't expect Carlsbad to be so active.
Yeah, okay.
And so since I've been here, there's been multiple art showings around town, including at the gallery, but also pop-up events from the Pecos on the Pearl and the Pecos
Arts and Culture District, right?
Yep.
Haligüeña Arts Park's pretty cool.
Yes, we have the Arts Park that encompasses the library and museum as well. And then the street art on the sign that's painted down by the courthouse is beautiful. And that's something that we always capture when we're traveling. So I have photos from a couple years before I moved here of art that was painted on buildings in town or on the ground.
You talk about the butterfly wings over by Domino's. Have you seen those?
Yeah, I have the butterfly wings, but also the name Carlsbad over by the courthouse.
Yeah.
I love.
That's like that. That's like the billboard art, right? Where you like postcard art is what they call that, right? You go take a picture of it, it's like a postcard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I would never qualify for a jury to choose what is good art. For example, I'm the worst. My husband's an artist.
Okay.
He's mainly an impressionist, and he will ask me about it, and I will be like, "Do you sure you want to ask me this question?" And he does. And so I try to find something that I can compliment about it, even though I'm like, that doesn't look like whatever it's supposed to be at all. No offense to him. He's really actually very good. But I'm like, I like things to look like they are. I like realism, I guess.
Okay.
And he's more impressionistic. And so I try to find something I can compliment that looks well to me. Rather than saying, "Oh, well, your hands are horrible," or
right,
I don't know what you're trying to do there, or whatever.
Right.
I'm not an artist, but I am a writer, and I have some aesthetic sense, I believe.
Okay.
And
now you're a community journalist.
And now I'm a community journalist.
Right.
It's pretty exciting.
That
just
is pretty
starting
exciting.
it out.
I would say, Gene and Hattie, if you were to come to my house and you happen to like the art that you saw anywhere, you could thank my wife. I don't really get much decision anymore. Plus, I really like abstract art, like very curt, in your face, abstract type stuff, boxes, you know what I mean? Very OCD, like boxed in stuff. And she doesn't like any of that.
Okay.
So I think our house is beautifully decorated. It's just not my choice. Actually, not true. We went to Italy and I got a couple of pieces that I ultimately got to choose, but amazingly we agreed on them together, right? But yeah, so I don't get to choose art very much at all. So Gene, you've been here officially 1 year. You've lived in communities that have significant art cultures, like massive foundations that invest in art, right? I mean, all this good stuff. What can you tell us about the art scene in Carlsbad?
I love the art scene in Carlsbad. It's so welcoming. The Carlsbad Area Art Association has been around since the 1960s.
Wow.
They opened the gallery in, I think, the late 70s, and it's a cooperative gallery. It's a
So the
co-op
artist gallery, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's my show, so I might. But like, so the artist gallery that's on Canyon Street downtown, that's the one that's been around since the 60s?
So the gallery part has just been around since the late 70s. The organization, the umbrella organization that has both the art gallery and the pottery studio has been around since the mid 60s. And so the gallery has been in a few different places since the late 70s, but since 2000 we bought the building, and so that's the permanent place for the gallery.
Okay, since the year 2000, right? Okay, and you were in Seattle in 2000?
I was
you
in
might have been
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Yeah, actually, I was thinking about the math on that. I was like, you said Philadelphia, 20 years in Seattle. Think about 2005 basically from now. So, I'm equally as impressed with the art in Southeast New Mexico in general, in the artist community in Southeast New Mexico. I graduated from Clovis High School, so not Clovis, but Roswell has a decent little art community as well. I didn't know if that was because like the attraction of like the aliens and all that stuff that makes you just kind of like a funky place to live or whatever. And then Albuquerque has a pretty good art scene too.
Oh yeah, and Santa Fe too.
Yeah, Santa Fe. Yeah, but Santa Fe, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong because this is just my opinion, but Santa Fe has become like rich people art only, right? And so, but correct me if I'm wrong.
I cannot. I haven't been there.
You've never been to Santa Fe? How
Not
long
yet.
have you lived here?
Like since August, but it was part-time at first.
Oh,
We
okay.
were
So you
moving
haven't
the
been here
house.
very long then.
No.
All right. So you've been here a year. Oh, so I'm the old timer.
Yeah.
I've been here just over 3 years. Look at me. Look at me being the old timer, right? I think that speaks to how Carlsbad's growing, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that says something about the community growing, right? The idea that we have 3 people here, one who's a radio station owner, and 2 artists, right? One creative artist, we'll call you, right? Have all been here like under 5 years, when Carlsbad was typically a community that was known for just people staying and living here their whole lives, right? Yeah. So we're growing, changing in very positive ways. For any old timers that are listening that are complaining about how we're no longer a one stoplight town, right? I mean, it's changing in very positive ways, and I think that that's great. And I think when it comes to Pearl and the Pecos Arts and Culture District, we do know we need to thank Kat Davis for that. Definitely. I think we all know Kat Davis. Kat Davis is head of Carlsbad Main Street Hattie.
Thank you.
Also head of the Pearl and the Pecos Arts and Culture District. And she has worked very, very hard. I hope Kat's listening because this is very beautiful. This is wonderful of us to say this about her. But she's worked very, very hard and is one of the only designations in the entire state where the Main Street boundaries and the Arts and Culture District are the same. They were technically, according to the state of New Mexico, they're designed to be separate places because you're looking at economic development, right, and trying to build both with Carlsbad Main Street, with the funding that comes with that and the Cavern Theater. But, we are a town where you can have both in there. So I think that Kat Davis pretty well, Jean?
I adore Kat, yeah.
Okay, all right. So have you ever do any of the Milton's pop-up shows?
I haven't yet, but I'd like to.
Okay, all right. So because we can't remind people too much about this, if you are interested in submitting your art, and this is all types of art, right?
Yeah, all types of art. You can pick up an application at the gallery.
At the Artist Gallery, that's 120 South Canyon Street in Carlsbad, New Mexico. If you haven't gone in there, you should anyways. It's a cool place to mull around and see some great local art. You're going to pick up an application. It's $8 per item entered. Is there any limit on how many items can be entered?
Not that I know of.
Okay. And then also, all work must have been done in the past 2 years. Is that like an honor system thing?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, right. Because I was like, if you did it 3 years ago, say you did it less than 2 years ago, you'll probably be all right. The show's open to anyone that's 14 years or older. But the honor system if it's been done in the past 2 years, the show dates will be at the Carlsbad Museum, May 19th through June 24th. You must submit this by May 18th with an application with $8. The application is going to tell you where to take the art, how to submit it, all that stuff, right?
That's right.
Have you grabbed an application yourself already?
I do. I have an application at home.
Okay. So do you want to indulge us a little bit as to how many pieces you're going to submit?
I haven't decided yet. I am doing some new things with animals, and I haven't done animals before. And so I guess it will just depend on how many I can make by then.
And so is this the first one of these we're having?
No, I don't know how many years they've done it, but this has been going on since before I was here.
Have you submitted in any before? Or is this the first one you're being a part of?
This is the first one.
Right. So I think I have some questions that you may not know, because I have some questions related to somebody that may have done this before, right? So, like, can you tell us how many pieces they're accepting total?
I don't know.
Okay,
Sorry.
right. I mean, can you give me an idea of how many you might suggest somebody inputs? Because you can't expect all of them to come in.
I would suggest 4.
Okay, so if you do more than 4, and then you're also not one of the juried selectors. The jury selectors. How would you say that?
I'm not on the jury.
You're not on the jury, right? So it's like a jury of your peers deciding whether your art is guilty or not. So and that's a good joke because your husband's a public defender. Thank you. Yay! All right. So you don't really know, but it's like more than 4. And then I guess like the idea is if the deadline's May 17th, let's say it's May 17th at 5 p.m. arbitrary, right? 5 p.m. We don't want to accept any more art. That means there could be a whole heck of a lot of art to decide in just 2 days. That would be a ton, right? And then I would say, let's just ask this question, Jean Prominski. How excited are you for this?
I'm really excited. I can't wait to see everything that's going to be in the show and meet all the other artists that aren't part of the gallery. And I love meeting new people. So I think it's going to be a really fun show.
And Hattie, you mentioned to me that you said that Jean was the first person you ever met at Carlsbad.
That is correct. When I first came to town, I had one friend here who moved here right before me, and her husband, who's also my friend. But then I was just like me and my family, and I was at home for 40 days without internet while I was waiting for them to connect it to the house, which was really hard. And I was like, I need to find stuff to do.
Yeah.
And I found the community education here at SCNMC and signed myself up for the podcasting class.
Nice.
And signed my son up for the art classes for kids during the day.
Right.
And Jean was doing those.
You know, I heard that the guy that teaches the podcasting class is pretty amazing. Sorry. That's like, it's corny, but I like that. It's me, right? I mean, we know that, but that's really corny. So thank you very much, Hattie, for joining us for the interview.
May I say something?
Please.
I wanted to mention that I interviewed Jean as my first local artist spotlight on Midweek Matters.
Wonderful. And that's great. And that would have already aired by the time this segment airs, but I'm really glad that was
so
something
people want to find out more about Jean, they can go to KCCC930am.com.
That's right. That's a very good point. I love that website. It's also my website. So, I mean, I love it very much. Jean, closing statement?
Just thank you so much for having me on the show.
All right. So calling all artists, right? The Juried Show at the Carlsbad Museum. You may submit artwork. The deadline is May 17th. Go to the Artist Gallery at 120 South Canyon Street here in Carlsbad to pick up an application, $8 per artist entry. You could then have your art displayed from between May 19th and June 14th, 2025. There's going to be winners and prizes and that type of stuff as well. So I think that's really great. So I want to thank Jean Prominski, a prominent local artist here in Carlsbad. Thank you for moving in. Hattie Quinn, a broadcast media program assistant, local community journalist, creative artist, do the words, right? I really appreciate both of you all coming in, and thank you all. And I guess that's it.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you.
You're listening to Community Forum on KCCC 930 AM, sponsored by Eddy County, honoring God, country, and family, thriving with industry since 1889.